At 6.
Way over there.
Oh, you're right here, Parish. I didn't put these out.
We'll go ahead and call the December 2nd meeting of the Utilities Committee to order. Madam Secretary, roll call show Councilman Turner absent right now. If everyone would please rise, the invocation be led by Mr. Ken Dawson, followed by the pledge.
Let us pray. Father, we give you thanks again for the opportunity to serve and all the blessings that you bestowed on Ascension Parish. We thank you for the strength that you've given us, oh God, and all the blessing that you've shown us over these holidays. We pray for this Christmas season, and may you bless those, oh God, that are less fortunate. And Father, we thank you for the heart, oh God, to share and to give as needed. As we come tonight, we thank you for your guidance. We pray for your wisdom in doing the people's business. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we don't have any chairs additions for tonight. Public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak concerning with the secretary will be given 3 minutes upon when that item comes up on the agenda. Item number 5 is approval of minutes from the September 24th meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Satterley, second by Councilman Joseph. Any discussion? Any objection? That motion passes. We got an update on Highway 73 and 42, Mr. Bob Horner.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We have, I guess we're still finishing up just the last little bit of mandrel testing and pressure testing and manholes, doing the testing on those. We have a handful of laterals that are being connected to finish up the lateral connections. Our pump station is currently being, the pumps and things are being installed and connected and ordered. They look for a startup on that sometime in February. And as far as the road project portion of Highway 73, they have done curb work for the majority of the run and the driveway pours for the driveway approaches, and they'll be starting to lay the asphalt soon, as, according to the DOT schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Highway 42, let's see. They're moving right along on Highway 42 as well. They have, the contractor has completed the lift stations 2 and 3. The force main is running west from lift station 2 has been completed. The gravity runs have been tied into both lift stations 1 and number 3. And they're proceeding to finish off with the plugs and the top pours of the slabs on the lift stations, and things are moving along there. They're jacking and boring under utilities and connecting laterals as they go out there as well.
Okay. Any questions? Mr. President.
42, that's gonna go to school, is that correct? Oak Grove?
Yes, sir. We're looking at that now. We've entered into an agreement, or we're entering into that with the. It's been approved in concept with the school board.
Okay. And 73, we need to go ahead and talk about that a bit too, I guess, the way we're gonna put it, Ken?
On 73, there are two options. The initial tail lines, Bob and I met with DHH, and the initial tail lines that are already being treated, we can still just take it straight to the outfall through that wet well near the fire station, because we're not putting in a temporary treatment system. Additional treatments, even for the growth, because we have some subdivision that are growing out there in additional growth. We're working out a deal with AWT, because they have a system that can be expanded and that can accept that additional flow. The initial agreement is kind of okay in concept. we had to go back on some cost things, and even had to work through the Public Service Commission to get some clarity there. So I talked with AWT possibly a couple of weeks ago, and they said that those cost things have been taken care of, and we should be getting something real soon. So everything that's handled on 73, it looks like we have a method of taking care of. One of our biggest concerns was that when we had other developments that come out there, that we had a way to keep those customers as parish customers, and then utilize other means to provide that treatment. And we think that we have a resolution there.
Okay. Any questions on any of that? All right. Moving on, Mr. O'Neill couldn't make it tonight. We wanted to start discussion on possibility of some land purchase for the treatment plant that we had talked about along 73. Mr. President, I don't know if you want to kind of go over
We were
negotiations.
talking, L.J. Gaddafi at 73 and 74, and he has a lot that's 20 acres, but we would buy 10 acres of it, and it already has a road going into it, so we would not have to build any infrastructure there. Plus, we could probably pick up his whole industrial park as customers. So, land's not getting any cheaper on 73. Basically, what happened, I think the school board recently bought 10 acres and paid about $150,000 an acre. We're looking, so far, what we've looked at is appraised value with him at around $87,000 per acre, and it's, I don't think you'd ever lose anything on that property, but, if we're serious about sewer and we don't do it this year or next year, whatever, but at least we need to go ahead and acquire the land to at least build the plant, the treatment plant. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now. We kind of still negotiating a little bit with Safi, but we've pretty much come to an agreement in concept.
And that's why we wanted to bring it forward tonight. It's not exactly where we had hoped it would be. It's on the southeast corner of the intersection of 73 and 30. And it's not exactly right in that corner. I wish we had a little bit, we forgot to bring a map of exactly where we are, but we're in a field basically just off of that intersection. And talking to Mr. Parrington yesterday, this is one of the things that if the committee feels something to progress forward with, to move it on, we would bring it to the full council to make a decision on how do we want to proceed. Do we want to proceed as ACUD2, or do we want to proceed as a council in actually acquiring the property? I don't know if President Martin, if you got something you want to express on that, but that's basically kind of, I don't think it requires a vote. It just requires making a decision on majority of the council parties of which way we want to proceed. If so, we would schedule a meeting after the first of the year as ACUD2, or we put it on the council agenda for to go ahead and give the administration the ability to go ahead and finalize the negotiations and move forward with the property acquisition. So I'll open the floor up for discussion. President Martin.
And if we acquire land or anything, we have to do it by ordinance. I don't think ACUD is required to do so.
Capable, okay.
So that's one of the differences, but either way is fine. I mean, if you want to put it, but I think that we have enough money in that account that we could buy it out of ACUD2 and not, we could pay cash for it actually if y'all wanted
Right.
to do that.
Mr. Lowe?
I just want to lend my encouragement to the idea. I read in the business report about that industrial park and how that's obviously doing well with the expansions and stuff out there. So I wasn't aware that we would even be able to tie in. That makes it even more attractive, I think, in terms of the site location. So I think it's, if we can get a good deal for it, and I know you're continuing to work on that, I say we push forward.
Councilman Sadler?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. President, a couple of questions. The first, your comment about the, I guess it's the Gazafi property. Do I have that correct, sir?
Correct.
Okay,
It's on the corner of
so-
73 and 74,
Right.
basically.
Help me a little bit. How far, question one, is that from the Mississippi River, since that's where we'd be taking the effluent from a proposed plant?
Maybe a mile and a half.
Okay. And then going the other way, how far is it from the schools that let out all their buses and all the stuff I'm reading in the paper. You mentioned the property bought a little further north from there by the school board for a almost a double or more higher price, which I thought was, I'm just going to say it, sinful. I'm glad the price you're giving right now is much, much less.
It is,
It's
it
almost
is-
like subdivision price, and I realize land's getting scarcer, but it's subdivision type processes when you're paying $150,000 an acre.
This is about 3 miles from the school.
Okay, so it's not going to necessarily produce, and of course, there's no real traffic going to be going in and out of there other than,
No, and we have, in that particular lot that we have has an outlet to 73. So
now,
we,
and do we have other options or that we're looking at, or is this?
we looked at some other options, but it was hard to get a parcel. If we could have got a 2 or 3 acre parcel, we probably could have. This one is a 10 acre, and if you decide you want to expand, there's another 10 acres. It's
Okay,
20
now,
acre.
that was going to be my third
Yes.
question. I might have put it to Mr. Dawson. So we were looking at 10, he has 20 that he's offering.
Yes.
But we'd have room for expansion because we're talking about, from all of the field trips we went on, some sort of a plant that would, correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, we'd have something in there to handle existing load, but ability to add, right down the line to it.
And I asked the designers and from different engineers what it would take, and they told me 10 acres. So that's what I based my opinion.
I think
With
that's
the-
consistent with what we saw in our field trips. Yep.
Yeah, with the systems we looked at on the field trips, whether you do, especially if you do the internal ditch type clarifier, you would definitely have plenty of room there to expand and probably wouldn't need any more property if you went to an external clarifier type system. You may need a little bit more property into the future, but you could probably do majority of it on the 10 acres that's there. And if you get into different types, whether I don't know if you'd have enough property for an oxidation type pond situation for all of it, but it would be difficult for the overall flow of what we eventually would be looking at. But so.
And on that same issue, I assume we're talking both with in-house and folks outside in terms of engineers as to what the size of acreage. I think the location is something that we've all talked about as being appropriate.
Yes,
Close proximity to the Mississippi
good thing
River.
about it is I don't think the property in that area is going to go down in value. I think
I think you're
we're
absolutely right
making a
about
pretty
that.
good deal at the price. I'm going to still try to get it a little cheaper if I can.
Well, I encourage you to do that, sir.
Okay.
So, I don't know if we want to do a motion or what have you to bring it forward, or
Move forward.
just go ahead and we can put it on the agenda for the next meeting for further discussion.
I would go ahead and ask that the committee could give O'Neill give him the authority to go ahead and negotiate and do the deal. So that's the way I would word it.
Okay.
And to come back to the council with a price, then we'd have to introduce. You want to go with HCUD2 or the council?
I think that's something, kind of put all of our heads together and decide. I mean, I would
It
talk
doesn't
to.
matter. We can transfer the money to either way.
Okay.
Well, the property would still belong to HCUD2.
I didn't get much of a chance to talk to O'Neill the other day about it. He was going in and out of a meeting when we had a few minutes to chat, so I can talk to him and get a little bit better feel of it and see if we would need to take a vote of the council. I know with the holidays coming up, we're not going to have too many people at the next meeting, from what I'm understanding. So, but
I would just authorize him to proceed with the sale, and you could decide at that point.
right.
At the next time, you come back with the price, whether you want to do with HCUD1 or the council.
Okay. So, motion, Mr. Sadler, or nope? Okay,
Still
I'm
a
sorry.
question,
Go
so
ahead.
I'm not quite sure. Are you saying, Mr. President, that we have the power, I guess is a good word, to make this motion, or it doesn't require the full council?
No, it does.
To be privileged.
What we're
and-
saying is.
Yeah, I
that you're
understand, but
gonna
I mean, this is sort of like after the fact. If you proceed, the difference right now is you're going to get a number, right? It's going to
I
say
was
these
gonna
many
say, I was
acres, this
gonna-
price.
My deal was to tell at the council meeting.
And regardless, it can't be bonded. The council's going to have to, binding it, it's going to have to
Right.
say yay or nay to whatever the final proposal is. So
Oh.
it's just a time-saving step you're trying to make.
All I'm asking is if we just, at the council meeting, y'all make a recommendation from this meeting to authorize Mr. Parrington to negotiate and then come back to the council once he's negotiated a price.
And if he was here, he'd be happy with that.
Yes.
Okay.
And then at that point, you can make a decision You don't have
Yeah,
to make a decision whether it's HCUP.
Basically, the motion, if anybody wants to make one, is to recommend that the council approves giving the authority to the legal counsel to finalize negotiations on a piece of property. Is what we're looking for. We're not looking for a motion to give him the authority to do it. We're looking for a motion to recommend the full council do that.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilman Lohr,
I'll second that.
second by Councilman Sadler. Any further discussion? Any objection? All right, moving forward. I talked to Chairman Kluwat, and I think we might have the ability, if we do it first thing in the morning, to amend the agenda for Thursday night's meeting to make that happen. If not, Ms. Carla, can we make sure that gets on the agenda for the 18th? Going on to item number 8, it's a presentation and discussion being led by Mr. Dawson and Mr. Bob Horner for on our sewer project.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. What we wanted to do was to kind of give you kind of an update. You know, with the SRF funding and some of the analysis that were done to determine a course of where we are. I mean, we were expected at a certain time based upon what we initially said to be at a certain point about this juncture in 2014, but we didn't get there, and there were some other numbers that were looked at, some other aspects that were looked at that were important. So with that, I want to ask you know, Mr. Horner to pull the presentation up, and we'll go through it. And I think it would answer a lot of questions as to where we're trying to head now.
One of the things, before Mr. Bob gets started, that we had a request by a group of citizens that we try to work this within the current budget and current funding that we have available. And so we worked those numbers, and this is kind of an answer to that, if you will. And so, Mr. Bob, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I guess I wanted to start off by saying is that we've been working very closely for a good number of hours this past summer with our program manager, GSA, to come up with a set of hydraulic models and a network of a couple of options that we'll get into. And at the crux of that, and at this juncture, the question was asked of engineering to break that down to where we could begin to look at the different options from what kind of customer generations there were along the corridor of the project that we're looking at. So if we could pull up the slide presentation, the first thing that I'd like to do is just kind of give you an overview on the area that we're talking about. Currently, as I mentioned, reported earlier, we have the Highway 40, or the 73, or the LA 73 project that is being constructed. That's a gravity sewer line that leads down to a lift station with a force main to go to the treatment area. Concurrently with that, we're working on the LA 42 gravity and force main systems that collect along that corridor. What we, the engineering department, has done is to look with the utility department and Stephen Bolello and his staff, is to look at the what it would take to connect the 42 line into the 73 line, and then to do one of two ways of treating it, which would be the blue area down near the river, down near the white legend box down there, is one wastewater treatment site, or, oops, what did I do? Oh, there we go. Or, as was mentioned earlier, you know, potentially a treatment, either a regional, sub-regional system, and this is all timing based, or a partnership with someone that has a system in the area. The other main component that we looked at was the corridor up on the far north of, which is from LA 42 up to the Parish line along what I refer to as the Manchac kind of corridor of airline. To transmit the effluent that would be collected in this gravity system and force main system to the treatment plant and then on out to the river, we looked at that pricing and costs and the customer base. And what I've done here in this slide is and I'm going to put this on the overhead because I didn't realize that we had the constraints that we do, and that looks like it's even more so. Here we go. And so what we've looked at are 4 different scenarios, and this is, again, to give us an idea of the sequencing from a time standpoint on the customer base that would come along. What we have on the left 2 columns are the LA 42 and the LA 73 customers that we've divided into 2 separate time frames. One being the immediate tail line customers who are currently discharging, as Ken mentioned earlier, the treated effluent already into the ditches that would be almost an immediate connection and customer gain for the parish. If I were to go down that column, well, let me continue. The next column over is those customers who discharge and or are within the 300-foot ban of where our system is being constructed. Those would take a little longer for notification purposes and transfer of time, but for that category we've said would be about a 3 to 5 year time frame from the time we started until the time we got everybody connected in that, and it probably happened a lot quicker than that. But if we looked at the tail line connections, there are 0 that we have been able to pick off along the Bayou Manchac corridor in the tail line. LA 42 has 44 customers, with LA 73 having an additional 70 customers that would come online relatively quickly. That's 114 for the $58,140 revenue per year. If we go over to the 300-foot, those are the customers that fall within that 300-foot band that I mentioned that would come on, and you can see the total there at the bottom. The next 2 columns on the right are what we've been working on with GSA on the SRF program that we've been looking at, and there are 2 essential stages of that. One was an initial build out, which is essentially everything in the corridor and along the corridor on the east side of the airline and 73 transmission area down there, with a full build out including everything across the way. Again, this is just to give you an idea of the kind of customer generation that would happen in the time frames with the approximate revenues. Yes.
Mr. Bob, just to clarify for everybody, so when we talk about complete build-out, exactly what area are we talking about? We're going beyond, the reason we're able to add customers is like between Set 42 and Bayou Manchac. We're talking about incorporating all of that area majority of that area into the system, correctly?
Yes.
And so you're expanding our system out is where the numbers are coming from.
And let me say that these numbers and the assumptions that were made at the time is these are customers who are currently not being served an existing system or a private provider. Okay? So there are a whole lot more customers when you take those into consideration. Okay? If I were to move on then, what this kind of boils down to, and I've summarized it on the third slide. Are we, how do I?
Oh, yeah.
Can you switch me back, John, to the PowerPoint? Thank you. Again, where did my third slide go? Here we are. The financial review portion, what we looked at on the LA 42 and 73 was that to do the connections that we were talking about and look at the tail lines and the 300-foot area with the treatment plant construction and the force main construction to get down to the river was about the $31 million mark, and that was using numbers that have been generated as a part of the work that GSA's done in the SRF. The customer revenues, as we mentioned before, would be in the 140,000 range, and with the SRF funding, with the full build out, that would be the $60 million that we've been talking about with the paybacks as shown. The customer revenues would be as shown on the 1.1 million. And there are probably a whole lot of questions, and that if anyone has a need to get into all of the details of it, we can more than happy to pull that up for you at some time.
Ken, you had?
Yeah, just, as Bob explained, it was always a challenge of looking at customer generation and customer bases, and we knew that that was a delta that we had to overcome in trying to accomplish a goal. We're still looking at, methods in which we can still accomplish that. We still have a preliminary application in for some funding, and there's still a lot of discussions going on with other players that are coming on board that are interested in moving forward with the parish. It's just that we wanted a clear view, this committee of the investment that it would take for the initial customer generation. And that when you're looking at operation and maintenance, that cost, and related to current operating maintenance of the system that we currently have, from the utility department, not only just waste treatment systems, but even the additional cost because of the brain-eating amoeba and additional cost for flushing that we had to absorb. We just realized that we are still working toward overcoming that delta, and we're working very hard toward it. So we still have some people that are talking that I think that we can still move forward, but we wanted to let you know why we weren't at the place we had anticipated to be by the end of this year.
So, in conversation that we've been having, and we wanted to have this data put together to show you guys before we really started bringing it forward to you. From a budgetary standpoint of view, the delta that Ken's talking about from in the money that we've dedicated to pay the money, the SRF funding back, doesn't encompass the O&M cost on the system. And unfortunately, the number of customers we would bring on the system doesn't accomplish that as well. So one of the things that we've said all along in unison with the administration, this committee, and I think the council as well, is that we want to make sure that in the project that we do is one that is a positive project that we can move forward and be proud of. And right now, the numbers just aren't adding up. So as Ken alluded to, there are some, we've had some talks in the past with some private-public partnership entities that are interested. Those have fallen through. We've got a couple new entities that are here that are starting to crunch some numbers, and hopefully as those talks progress, we'll be able to bring that forward and show the committee where we're at with that. If something seems, if the numbers work out, and and the committee and the council wishes for us to move forward, we will move that forward as well. I know that myself personally, I'm not willing to support anything that's not going to be of a reasonable project that we can make sure that from a long-term standpoint of view that we're not going to be able to support, not only from getting the project done, but also financially to where it's as least of an impact on the citizens as possible. It is going to be an impact. We said that all along, but we want to try to minimize that as much as possible. And so the spin on this, or no spin, the facts are is that we're going to continue to move forward. We're going to continue to try to work these things to find out what's the best project that we can do and how do we progress forward with that. We're going to be to continue to crunch the numbers. It's just as it sits right now, where do we want to go? You know, we've said it all along that you can't build a system too big without the customers because it won't operate. But yet if you build it small enough to handle the customers that are there, as you grow and expand the system, it won't be big enough to handle what's going to be added into it. So the ordinance that we passed a couple of weeks back is a big factor in moving forward with it, with any system that we do. And so if anyone has any other questions, we'll try to answer them. But that's kind of where we are in a nutshell. Councilman Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I guess, you know, I always hate to want to say this here, but from day one I got on this council, I say you would not be able to put up a sewage plan or sewage system unless you have another source. When I heard so many people that come in front of us over the 8 years I've been here talking about what they can do. But the bottom line is they say, do you have another source of revenue? That other source of revenues is some type of fee. We done tried partial fee, we done discussed partial fee, we done talked taxes, we done talked all kind of ways we can do it. But we know the only way you're gonna put this system in if you have alternative substitute of revenues to subsidize it. I mean, 8 years I've been going through this circle, and I mean, you know I'm all for sewage. I'm 110% for it. But reality is reality, and I know nobody won't pay taxes. We can forget about that in this parish. Then you can forget about sewage. And you can wait till the federal government come here and tell you, you're gonna do it. And that's where we at. I mean, you'll work this committee have worked it. Administration have worked it. And I mean, the public have seen this for 8 years. I know I've been here. So I have, I just say it's, reality gonna come where one day we're gonna have to make a ruling on this here. And we know we need customers. We know we're gonna have to buy some companies out, private company, or we're gonna privatize it. And as you know, we're gonna discuss that. And the last one I heard was 407 million came here and said the average bill gonna be $85. The last one. And the public went outrageous about that. I don't know the answers, ladies and gentlemen, but I know this is not gonna happen real soon. And as you can see, 5 to 10 years for a full bill out for 1,000 customers. I mean, if I'm not, 1,000 customers. It just ain't gonna work. So I don't know what it's gonna take, but I know the brains that have been sitting up here for the last 8 years, we haven't figured it out. So hope someone can. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it.
Councilman Sadler.
Yeah, and I respect and appreciate everything that Councilman Joseph just said, and want to be on record again, and I think I am, that he said 110, I'm probably 150% behind the beginning, and hopefully one day parish-wide sewer, which, no pun intended, may or may not be a pipe dream. Bob, I have some questions about your numbers here.
Yes, sir.
I'm not quite sure I understand the definition of what you're calling a customer. That's number one. And then number two, in your numbers, what did you use? Those customers, are they exclusively commercial along these highways? Are there some residential folks involved in that? And like how much per month are they being charged to have generated the numbers you're doing? And I know it's not going to be a fix, whatever you tell me, because as Mr. Joseph just said, I think he said 1,000, but for full bill, it's 2,000. But either way, the numbers are woefully low. I don't think anybody's going to deny that. As far as numbers of customers and therefore the amount of revenue those customers will generate. And this also assumes, I guess, a stagnant model. That's what's right here. Next year, there could be more and more and so forth. So I'd like to hear you speak about, how much dollars a month, whatever the customer is, they would be charged, commercial, residential, who is exactly the customer? Because I think I just heard I lit up when you made the comment about this is people like me, well, not like me, but let me say it this way. These are folks that aren't, I guess, well, I don't know, I'm not sure what they are. They're on package treatment plants, they're on MODEDs, they're on whatever they're on, but they're not with a private company. And to me, unless we get those private companies like AWT, the bankrupt one, what is it, Density, the other one, MODED, et cetera, those customers, yeah, this is going to flop around our ears. But I've said enough, Bob. Maybe you can kind of address
Sure.
those 3 or 4 issues.
Councilman, what we did was we did a real high-level overview of this, and we used, as far as our customer rate that we used to look at it, for the majority of them are residential, with the exception of the ones along the Bayou Manchac segment there, along Airline. But the ones along 42 and 73 are predominantly residential customers. But the rates that we're looking at are $45 per month for a household at it's 400 gallons. 400 gallons per day per customer, and it's I think we used a peaking factor and that type of thing for infiltration and what have you. But the crux of it is we use $45 for the residential, and then a $49, which is our base level currently for our commercial customers that we're looking at. Now, that's not to say that those rates aren't going to, like you said, be dynamic and adjust in the future as we move forward with our program.
Okay, and to be sure, just as, I'm going to throw one example out. It's got 42 and 73 on it, and all the way, you didn't define it, but I think it's obvious WWTP is where the wastewater treatment plant would
Yes.
be in those different distances. But let's just say like Highway 47, Old Perkins Road, up in my borough, that wouldn't be any customers along that, quote, corridor would be hooked in these numbers. It would just be people, you'd have to be on the Hellon Highway pretty much.
Well,
I'm surprised you're even
it-
finding these many that you're saying are mostly residential.
Right.
In the areas you described. I would have thought it'd been more, almost 100% commercial, but.
And again, in the LA 42 and 73 area, yes, I believe the areas that you're talking about, what we're looking at in those, along the 42 and 73 corridor is just within that first 300 feet. That's not to say that there aren't going to be other customers that are outside that 300-foot band or area of immediate connection into our system that our ordinances have. But what we looked at for this was just that. In the initial build-out and the full build-out, I think the customers in the areas you're talking about would come into play.
So what is your recommendation, sir? Should we just give up, or is there, can these numbers be
One of the things,
massaged correctly? I hate to even use the word massage because it sounds like you're doing something seedy, but I mean, the numbers you're presenting here are woefully low and just kind of scary.
Mr. President, you had?
I think I have more experience than anybody on this thing. I know OJ said he's got 8 years. I've probably got 24, 25 years trying to deal with this situation, whether I was on the council or as a citizen. But bottom line is that every time it makes a full circle and it comes back to the same conclusion, that if you're going to move forward with sewer, you have to do a public-private partnership. That's the only way it's going to happen. They can come in and put about 300 million in, or whatever it takes to get that whole area where you're talking about on Perkins Road and all the northern sector, and be a partner. That's not to say that we don't go get the $60 million SRF loan, but that would be part of the package with someone, a public-private partner, that would actually hopefully lower the cost to your customers and be able to deliver the whole thing within a 5 to 10 year period. So I think that the answer to your question, how can it get done? I think the only way it's going to get done, because we all know we're not going to pass any taxes, you're not going to pass any user fees, you're not going to pass anything in the near future. So if you want to start on this in the near future, I think that would be the suggestion I would do, and I would sit down and listen to whoever had a proposal and see who can make the best proposal. So, and if at that point you don't feel comfortable, then we'll just do like OJ said, we just have to wait till the government tells us what to do.
Yeah, and not to interrupt, Mr. President, aren't we kind of doing that? At least I thought, Mr. Dawson, aren't we talking to these folks about, I realize one's bankrupt and another, but to say, like, can we sit down at the table now and decide that we can, quote unquote, get in bed together and make this thing work for the betterment of the
We've been doing that, and we've tried to acquire MODAD. We did all we could do.
Can we get a brief update on that? I mean, where are we?
We made an offer, and we gave them a time frame, I think November 1st, and we didn't hear from them. So bottom line is that the offer's not there anymore. I think there's another company that's also trying to buy them out, and also there's other companies trying to buy AWT out. So, if that happens, then you got all the customers on one and under one company or one base, and that way it can be feasible from a financial standpoint. If you try to do what we're doing, and we do build one section, and MODAD has a section, we see where they at. They about bankrupt. The other little company, they went bankrupt. So density. So we're gonna, if we try to do all that, the only way to do it is to combine everything, and the only way you're gonna combine everything with a public-private partnership. And we've tried to work with the existing companies here in the parish, and hadn't made a whole lot of progress. But I think some of these other companies, these national companies, will make some inway, whether they're going to buy somebody out before it's over with. But they seem to be willing to work with us on that front.
And while we're on the subject, did these companies, I'm not sure if they've all appeared, but I think at least one would have by now, did they get their rate increases that they request with the Public Service Commission?
I think not.
MODAD
Really?
got a $3 a month
rate
increase that when we went to the Public Service Commission with them, that we agreed to allow them to break even, but there's a bunch of numbers in there that we agreed to that to open negotiations with them, and but it doesn't put them in a good financial position. So that's what they still have to go back for the rest of the rate increase that they requested in December.
And AWT, have they had their day in court, so to speak?
AWT, I don't
No.
think they have had their day in court, but they're all looking at about between $40 and $45 a month on residential. That's what they're asking for. So that's probably about right. And in talking with these companies, that's kind of what we would try to, that would be a goal that we would try to shoot for also for the citizens in that 40 to 45.
Which is the number, Mr. Horner, that you just gave, right, sir?
Yes. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. And the bottom line, and like I said, we can go back as far as you want to go back, and it all falls back. It comes back full circle that we are not able to do this on our own financially. No matter what we do, we can do a little at a time, but we're still going to struggle, and we're going to lose money. I can tell you, we're going to subsidize the whole system if we do. So
Mr. Lohr?
that's what it's.
Well, I was just thinking about it from with the MODAD thing. I mean, even if we got their customers, it's still only a few hundred. It's still not even close. I'm not saying we shouldn't, maybe continue to negotiate with them, but I mean, again, I think I look at this as it's not even close. I mean, the problem, of course, is the customers, and it's just such a vast gap in terms of what we would be investing and putting pipes in the ground, and what kind of revenue we would be getting, which is next to nothing. So, I mean, I know we've gone down that road before with the public-private partnership, and it was sad to see that last term fall through, but we're going to have to take another stab at it, or get creative, maybe looking at other areas that were more high growth. But again, still, that's going to be small. I think you're right, Mr. President. It all comes back to how do we get the customers, and we're either going to have outside capital that comes in and helps, or we're going to work with something with existing, or we're going to do nothing. So,
Well, let me say a couple of things real quick. And me and Parish presidents had debated this a number of times, along with other people. I am not delusional in the aspect to believe that the public is favorable for any kind of taxes. But I think, as well as going forward and being realistic with this, eventually, some way down the line, you're going to need some kind of revenue stream. So, what do? I don't know. Do we put a plan together, put something on the ballot, and see what happens with it? If that's the case, then we know that avenue, if it fails, then we know that avenue is gone. And see what the public's willing to do. Until we do that, we don't know. We can speculate all we want to speculate. Do I say it's going to pass? No, I don't. Do I think it's got a reasonable shot? I doubt it. But I think it's one of those things that you got to put a good plan together. You go out to educate the people as best you can, and see what they want to do. And what kind of time frame we want to put on that, I don't know. The private-public partnerships, yes, they are definitely an option for us. And all I suggest is that we make sure that we know what we're getting into when we get into it. The issues that we had in the past with them was that they would come in and I won't say promise us the moon, but they would make certain statements, and when you challenge them, they couldn't put it on paper to make those statements valid. And so the couple people that are here today that are talking to the administration about those things are willing to at least go back and work the numbers and try to come forward with something that we can look at and make a just decision on one way or the other. To me, the positive thing on this is that we've eliminated one channel or one opportunity that we had. We're not stopping. We're going to find an answer to the problem, because it is a problem that we need to solve. And we're going to have many more discussions like this, I believe, into the future till we come up with the right answer, or what we believe to be the right answer, and what path we have to go forward, whether it's putting it toward the public or the council or ACUD2 or whatever that answer is. And that's our challenge, is to find what that solution is, and I think we're up to it. It's going to be creative or whatever it is, because I don't know that I won't say there's nobody out there facing the same problems we got, but how we're trying to answer it is what's unique about it. The problem that we face in dealing with the private entities is placing a value on the customers that they have and what's reasonable. And that's where the downfall is coming with those particular entities and the companies that we've talked to. Density, which is in bankruptcy court, has a company that's made an offer, and they're in the process of finalizing that. And they've had some preliminary discussions with the administration, and we're going to progress forward with those. And my conversation with Mr. Dawson, the parish president, to see where we can come into some joint cooperation to not only help them out, but also help us out. And that's part of that private-public partnership thing that we get into. Because one of the things that they bring to the table that the local companies can't bring to the table is the financial part of this with the investors to make a larger comprehensive system happen. And that's basically what it boils down to. Whether you're talking about tax dollars or you're talking about private-public partnership, it's the money. And where do we get the money from to make this system happen, but also make it happen to where it's viable into the future, that it can be sustained without being setting ourselves up for failure like what has happened in other areas as well either. And that's the trick to this. That's the ultimate caveat that I personally am looking for. I'm not willing to just do this to get into the business. We've got to set it up to where it's not a burden or as minimal of a burden on the public into the future as possible. And that's the real trick to it. We can go out there and we can find, we've had the people in here before. They'll come throw hundreds of millions of dollars at us. We've got a group out there now that's offering 400 or 500 million on the table. And we could sign the paperwork tomorrow. The problem is what is that going to get us? Will it get us a system? Yes. What's it going to cost us long term? And that's where you get into the details of what we have to negotiate and make sure that we're looking out for the people that we represent and getting the best deal that's there. And that's our challenge. So it's not going away. It is something that we're going to solve one way or the other. I feel confident that we can do that. We just got to put all our heads together and figure out what that path forward is. And I think we've got a good team on board. I think we've got a council that's willing to work with us, a utilities committee that's done exemplary in working towards to get us where we are today. The team that's there between the utilities department, the engineering firm, administration, all the folks that they put in play with this, as well as bringing GSA on and other entities that bring information to us. It's a learning. And every day that I have a discussion with some of these folks, I learn something new. And so that's what I look forward to, is the day that we can sit there and make sure that we've got the right deal. We can progress forward and go to the public and tell them, we've got an answer. Mr. Joseph.
Yes, I just want to ask a question. The total number of rooftops, if we had the system on this, I guess we call it P16, if you include the private companies, customers, in that P16 area, 42, man shack, and what you call, what's the total number of rooftop? I thought we had like 2,700 or something like that?
I think we're around that, yeah, Mr. Dell. I have to go back and look at it, but I think you're looking at the total number of rooftops. Do you remember that number? Total number of rooftops in the P16 area, the modified P16 area. I think that you're right, but I have to go back and look at that number.
No, it's bigger than that. Oh, much more than that.
Much more, yeah.
Much more. And so that's the kind of number we're talking about. That's what it'd be the big difference.
I'm talking 20,000. I thought you said 1,000.
That's what I thought I said, 27,000.
That's better.
Yeah, 1,000. About 20,000, okay. So,
If we were to connect every resident, including the private entities that are there today, if we were to bring those numbers in, Glenn, we're looking at about 20,000 businesses as well as residences. Right.
okay, and that's what the public, if we'd have had that number and showed the number, what type of numbers we'd have generate from those numbers, then, I mean, comparing what we can do, and if we had the whole P16 up, what it would generate and OMN would come, that would be, okay.
But not to, and I agree with you, the other little piece of this, and this is where it gets to be details, is that in addition to, you can't use the SRF money to acquire private entities that are there. You can only use it for construction. And so when you start negotiating with the private companies that are there in order to purchase those customers out, that's extra money that you don't have. You got to come up with that revenue from somewhere else, and that's where it gets cost prohibitive in some of that. And so when you get enough customers by doing that to generate enough money to cover your O&M costs, as well as the money we've dedicated already to paying back your debt service on the SRF loan. But will that generate enough money to cover the shortfall in the O&M as well as cover the debt service on what you would require to purchase those things out? And that's where you run into the issues of the numbers, and that's why having some large capital coming in or being able to get into, and who's to say? I mean, we haven't broached this subject with anybody else or with DEQ especially, but the SRF is a revolving fund. If we get a private-public partnership where they're willing to come in here and throw a large dollar amount to us, is there more money available through the SRF loan, which would be even make it more financially appealing, be able to grow the system even bigger than what they would initially have thought or what that would cover. So there's a lot of different items, if you will, that you could what if this thing to death almost, but it's those are the kind of answers that we're searching for. Mr. Dawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just something that I want to say that's very positive that this committee led and the council passed, okay? A $10 million investment in infrastructure on 73 and 42. That's worth a lot of money. That's worth something. Okay, we also have a pre-application for $65 million, less than 1% interest. That's appealing for investment. Another thing that's important, you own the customers. They're still ACUD number 2 customers. I mean, you are a utility district, they are your customers. So the way that the ordinance is written, no one can come in and just take your customers. So that puts you in a very good negotiating position as well. And again, the ordinance that allows us to go in and do the testing and make sure that that the systems that are operating according to the specification of the Department of Environmental Quality. So it was a lot of positive things that were done, and that's why I think there is interest in some of these public-private partnerships are wanting to talk with us, because quite honestly, in conversation with one, they said, wow, Ascension Parish, you've done your homework, you've done a lot of stuff. They were quite surprised in the steps that the parish has made in trying to tackle this. So, you know, I think that in that, we are committed to continue to have those conversations, to look at the, you know, a 3P, and to develop a process that works well in accomplishing the goals that we all have, and that it has to be sustainable. The goal is to have a system that's sustainable and would not require any continual help from taxpayers to, you know, for long term. So it's a sustainable plan that we're trying to work out.
Mr. Sadler.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ken. So where are we on closing this $60 million SRF loan, and should we be considering what I read in the Creel a few days ago, the windfall monies that we're getting from Mr. Smiley from all the extra folks that were, what's a good word for this, not paying taxes, but now will be paying taxes. This, because I've heard several councilmen here make an admission. I'm glad to hear that, and it's not an I told you so. It is what it is. We're not going to do anything with taxes. So I'll just say it again. We're just not going to do it with taxes. But the people read, and I've already got that question, quite frankly. Well, Doc, y'all just got another several $1 million because Mert has got his digital aerial imagery system and is even more. And some of the numbers that they talked about for the school board, and yeah, I know you all read the same thing, and law enforcement were staggering, thousands of percents return on the little small monies we gave them. So should we be thinking about that to at least handle the debt service? And where are we? Are we going to close on this loan? I mean, let's leave the impression for the folks out there looking at this meeting. I did hear this, and I'm glad we're not giving up. We're heck bent to do something, and I do believe we are headed and are, I think, still headed in the right direction. But I think, as Chris and others have said, it's a customer issue. How do we get it? I encouraged already the president and anybody, if we can do a public-private partnership while we're still not losing that brother-in-law interest loan, let's do that. But where are we? We closing soon, Tommy, or?
We're not closing soon, because we're not gonna close until we know we can pay it back, you know.
Okay,
and
because I mean,
cut
they stood up here and we gave them a plaque and all, and they were talking about maybe we could do this as quickly as, actually this month, November.
Right.
That was, it was
But
10
we
months
was
ago.
gonna try and
That's
do
why
it.
we're here. That's why we're here today, making sure that
Okay.
everyone's
I
on.
just wanted to be certain. What
Haste-
have we done?
Haste makes waste. If we go and borrow it, and then we gotta pay back $3 million a year, and we're only getting in, at best here, $1 million a year, we're gonna lose $2 million a year, so I don't think that that's a good investment. But I think, given time, we can work some of these things out, and I think we
And
will.
we're not going to lose it? I mean,
No,
there was some
well,
talk back then, they're going to give it to another parish.
I would hope not. They've been very patient, and they know that we're working very, very hard, and they know that we've been involved not only with the Public Service Commission, but with DEQ and everybody else in trying to get this thing, something that will work for Ascension Parish. So I think they'll be patient with us for a little longer. So as far as the windfall we're talking about, I don't think we're getting a windfall. We're talking about 2% of property tax, a 2 mil property tax. That's what we got. That's not dedicated. See, that's where the problem comes in. Everybody thinks we're getting all this money, we can just spend it everywhere. We can't.
Well, I know the council's going to have to
So I
decide
can't-
what they're
I
going
mean,
to
I
do
don't
with
know
it.
if
It's
it's-
probably spent already.
We can't decide on, if I may, the monies that you're talking about, we can't decide. I mean, out of the two mills that we're going to get, yeah, we can decide on where that's going to go. But the rest of it, the millage that the parish gets, it goes to the library, it goes to the
Right, I
to
understand
the
all
mental
that,
health and all that. So
but a mill is still $1 million, and two is two, and we said as a council, I remember it vividly 3 years ago.
We didn't get an
there were
extra
two
two.
things we wanted to do: roads and sewer.
Right.
And the other things hopefully are going to kind of take care of themselves for a little bit. And I'm just saying, should we start a conversation about using this windfall money and try to convince our non-utilities committee members of the council that y'all need to support us to try to get this through, because there is going to be no more taxes right now anyway. Maybe in the next council, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm gonna let you worry about that, Doc.
All right, well, thank you for your honesty, sir.
Councilman Lowe.
The numbers that I read was 436,000, I think, or 430,000 was the parish's increase in that, which, is still some money, but that's far from, the 10 million for the school board or whatever they got. So I don't think that alone is going to solve the problem. I think it's bigger than that. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify. I hope people read that article and see how that just shows how fundamentally screwed up the property tax buy is, in my opinion. I think our fundamentals in this parish, and I've harped on this issue before, all the way back to the libraries and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is such a great example of that, and how that continues to perpetuate itself. When Mr. Smiley, has gone and got this additional funding, well, that's wonderful. It's still, from our standpoint, doesn't move the needle.
Yeah, I would hesitate to call it a windfall on a parish's perspective. And like the numbers Councilman Lord just put out there, while it's good for us that we have those additional revenues to do something with, and if the council was to see fit and administration to work that to where that 400-something thousand would go towards sewer, that's fantastic. But you're still talking already $1 million shortfall on an annual basis, so you're still 600,000 in the hole. So while I don't want to give any false impression to the public, but I want to make sure they understand that from a utility standpoint of view, if you turn around and direct any monies that we get off of additional property taxes towards utilities, you're still a shortfall, and so it's not going to bring you any money to put out there on sewer. And so you can redirect some other funding that multiple different things that you can do, but again, as we've alluded to, when it comes to the property taxes that are there, that's, while it's benefiting certain segments of parish government, whether it be drainage, library, and mental health, and those type of things, those monies are dedicated and can't be moved out of there. Now, and Councilman Lowe and myself, I can speak with him along this, because we were the ones that started the conversation about trying to do something else with the library taxes. And I'll stand up here in front of anybody and tell them today, well, I think that's something that was worthwhile having that discussion on. I heard very loud and clear from the several phone calls that I got. Not one phone call that I get from anybody in the public that said, yeah, I think you're looking at the right thing. But I can't tell you the number that I got that said, leave the library money alone. And so while I don't disagree that those are things, whether it be the library, mental health, drainage, or any of those other things, because we broached those subjects before as well. Until we get some kind of concerted effort from the people that we represent that say, yeah, do this, then it's discussions we can have, but it's not anything that the public is willing to move on, as far as I can tell right now. And so it is what it is. But revenue from property taxes is not a windfall right now for parish government that I can tell.
Benny?
Councilman
Just to be clear, all I was suggesting is that we start a conversation. I'm not saying that, it might be a Band-Aid, Mr. Lohr may be correct, I'm even going to argue numbers. I apparently misread the article, but maybe not. But when I have school board members sit and have coffee with me and tell me, Doc, we have so much money, we don't know what to do with it. It's almost vulgar. Doc, if we don't spend this money's going to be taken away from us. Doc, et cetera. And like Benny, I don't want to pick on libraries, council on aging, mental health, the school board, et cetera. We got excellent schools, et cetera. But It bothers me when I watch the school board buy a piece of property, and you mentioned this earlier, Tommy, on Highway 73 to build a school, and then we all get a letter, I know you were copied on it, and every member of this council, stating, what are y'all doing? When you got Bouillon Crossing over there, it was a big controversial thing, and you haven't built the school there yet, and people are trying to go up and down 621 as it comes into 673, and the buses down there at the other two schools in Terry's district are letting out at the time, and already got a traffic jam, and we're fixing to put another 200 and, 97 lots, can or something there in whatever it's called, forgive me for the name, it came in front of the Planning Commission on 73, and we're buying this property. I mean, okay, so we're hurting right here, us, the council. You know, we're the red-headed, and please, I didn't say ginger, orphan children. But are we brave enough, though, to stand in front of the people and some of these other entities and say, hey, guys, y'all got a little too big of a slice of pie, and what we're missing here is you guys in the school board, you guys in the library, you guys in all these other deals have to flush your toilets, too. I once said when we were fighting Quick Take, y'all might remember that, I was demonized on this one, hey, school guys, y'all use the same roads. You got buses. Those buses are chock full with children. If we put them across the scale, I'd venture to say you're tearing up the roads a lot worse than everybody was worried about what the garbage trucks were doing, remember? Government franchise garbage collection was the flavor of the month back then. So I'm sitting here thinking, boy, yeah, it's a sacred cow. Watch it, Doc. You say something about the children, you know, whatever. But if they are indeed as fat as the school board members telling me and stuff, and we need sewage, I don't understand. I mean, why are we buying more property to build another school when we haven't, we promised in that PUD concept. I took a lot of heat from that as a commissioner, and since. I want the record to show tonight, check who actually made the motion, who voted to actually approve it. Now I'm a little more embarrassed because I proved something that hadn't happened, and I'm wondering, is it going to happen? I'm hearing from that school board, we bought a bunch of property, truth be known, that someone made a very large amount of money, a 7-digit figure, and it was bought, I've been told. Now, this is all what I'm told, so I don't know if these are absolute facts. But it was bought, ladies and gentlemen, without even an appraisal. And an appraisal after the fact showed it wasn't worth what they paid for it. Well, if you're that fat that you can demonstrate that level of largesse, not even worry about the other property, but Bouillon Crossing and so forth and so on, why do we got to continue on these committees? It was that way when I was on recreation before the parish had the wisdom or made the mistake of moving me to strategic planning or here in utilities. We always seem to be cap in hand and begging. Yet the most vital thing we need, next to roads, and I'm not going to argue which one's one and which one's two, is sewer. So I would challenge, you know, I just threw it out there. I mean, I don't want to fight with Mr. Lohr. That we need to have that discussion. Sure, if it's 400,000, if it's 2 million, whatever it is, it's a step in the right direction. And I say it too because, Tommy, I got a little bit nervous when a few meetings back before we went on camera, I think it was a Donaldsonville meeting, you made a comment that, not sure, Doc, we can, and I appreciated that, by the way, you know, get that $60 million because I'm not running for office again. I cannot leave this parish, and I think that's a wonderful thing, in a lurch, and not, you know, and have a funding issue there. So maybe we're going to have to be able to do 30 million or whatever it is. And I'm not quite sure where we are and all of that. But, guys, we need to truck on at not breakneck speed. You know, I'm not a fast guy either. I don't want to make a bad decision. We're not ready to close a loan. Let's don't do that. But we need to have some conversations with some of these people. I don't know what it would take. I'd like to have them here at our meetings. I'd love to be at their meetings. Unfortunately, we put theirs on TV. But because if I were in the audience, I'd have said, why y'all buying more property? You ain't using what you got. You know, sorry for the rant.
Mr. Dawson.
You know, I want to say that we still will be talking with DEQ. We always kept them informed. Secretary Hatch, you know, Deputy Secretary Peening, Sheriff Nolan, Jonathan McFarland, all of them have done a wonderful job, and they still support what we're trying to do in Ascension Parish. They know it's difficult. They know it's very hard, and I don't think that you know, they will be in any way thrown off by us looking at this in a detailed method to make sure that we do the best that we can to have a sustainable system. So we will be talking with him. In fact, I tried to call Dr. Peening the day he was in the meeting, and he said he's going to return my call tomorrow. So we're going to continue moving forward with that, Doc, and at this point, I don't think that they're saying that they're out of the game with us at all. Okay.
And that's one of the things in the meetings that we've had with them in the past, that we've made abundantly clear that we want to be a working partner with them in getting this thing done. And that we, like Ken said, we have been communicating with them, keeping them in the loop. But we always told them that it's got to be the right process, the right system for us, and to make sure that we're doing it correctly. And so they understand that. They understand that. In talking to Dr. Peening in the past, he's mentioned some things like what we're discovering today, or we have discovered over the last year or so in doing this stuff. So they understand. And as long as possible, I'm sure they will keep that funding available for us. And it is a revolving fund, so if it goes away next month, maybe next year, whenever we get our problem solved, there may be some additional funding there available for us. So always keep that door open. Anything else? Well, gentlemen, I appreciate the discussion. We've got that one item on the agenda for the council, and we'll move forward with that. We'll move on to agenda item number 9.
Motion to close.
Second.
Motion adjourned by Councilman Joseph, second by Councilman Lohr. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank y'all.